Okay, this video looks at data security. It's 6.1 on the CIE 9618 specification. It's one of the series of videos on the whole course, so please check out those videos. In this one we look at security of the data, privacy and integrity. So data security means protecting data from unauthorized access, from damage or loss. Privacy means controlling who can see personal data and how it's used. And integrity is about ensuring the accuracy and consistency of data over time. So security. To ensure data security, organizations need to implement various measures such as usernames and passwords, this is called authentication, access levels, firewalls, encryption, physical security, backups, and more. In privacy, organizations need to behave in an ethical way and within legal frameworks such as Data Protection Act and GDPR. Data subjects, the people whose data is being stored, need to be told how their data will be used. And data should not be shared without their consent. Integrity. Organizations need to ensure that data has not been altered, corrupted, or tampered with. And some integrity measures include data validation, i.e. checking that input is reasonable and sensible. Data verification, checking that data has been input correctly, for example by double checking. The use of things like checksums and hash values to make sure data has not been changed or corrupted. So we need to look at data and system security. Data security on its own isn't enough. You could encrypt every single file, apply strict access and validate every input, but if the underlying computer system itself gets compromised, for example when a hacker gains access to admin or root, or they install a keylogger, etc., all that protection is bypassed. The attacker doesn't need to break the encryption if they can just capture the password as it's typed or access the data after it's been decrypted for legitimate use. Conversely, you could have a rock-solid, well-patched firewall system with strong physical security, but if the data itself is stored in an unencrypted way, or is not validated properly, or has weak access controls, then anyone who does get any kind of access, for example a rogue employee or a laptop that gets stolen, then they can read or corrupt sensitive data freely. So, system level security stops the attacker getting in at all, while data level security limits the damage if they do get in. A firewall, for example, can block an intrusion attempt entirely, but if it fails, encrypted data still protects the information. Let's have a look at more detail at some of these methods you can use for security. So in user accounts, each user is given a unique username and often a role or privilege level, so the system can identify who's accessing it and what they can access. On a standalone PC, that might just be separate for different people in the households, keeping this file separate from each other's files. On a network, user accounts allow an admin, user and administrator to assign different access rights, read-only, read-write, no access, to different users or groups, so people only see what they need to. This is called the principle of least privilege. You don't need to give everybody access to sensitive information, and the more people you do, the more risky it is. So this limits the damage a compromised or careless account can do. So if somebody compromises a low-level account, they're limited as what damage they can do. Passwords. A password is a shared secret used alongside the username to prove identity, i.e. authenticate. prove that it is who they say it is. So good practice for passwords includes having a minimum length, a mix of character types, and expiry or rotation policies that mean you have to change your account after a certain period of time. You can also have account lockouts, which this helps with repeated failed attempts, preventing brute force attacks. Passwords are the most basic authentication factor, but they're vulnerable to being guessed, shared, they get written down, or possibly given away in phishing attack, which is why systems often add further authentication levels. So this includes biometrics, and a biometric uses a unique physical characteristic such as fingerprint, retina or iris scan, a facial recognition or voice recognition to identify. And because biometric data is very hard to replicate or steal in the way a password can be, it offers stronger authentication. Often used as a second factor, hence the name 2FA, alongside a password, both on standalone devices and for network and building access control. A firewall sits between a computer network and external connections, for example the internet. It examines incoming and outgoing traffic against a set of rules, blocking anything that looks unauthorized or suspicious. On a standalone PC, that might be a simple software filtering ports, checking where the data is coming in. On a network, it's typically a dedicated hardware firewall protecting the whole network perimeter. And it also stops external attackers scanning for vulnerable internal devices behind the firewall. Antivirus software. This scans files, downloads, and running processes against a database of known virus signatures, and increasingly uses heuristics or behavioral analysis to spot new or unknown threats. It quarantines or deletes infected files, but needs regular updates to stay effective against new viruses. And on a network, it's often managed centrally, so every machine gets updates and scans simultaneously. Anti-spyware software. This is software that specifically targets spyware, a form of malware that secretly monitors user activities, including key presses, browsing, screenshots, and send the data to a third party. It's a distinct category from general antivirus software because spyware is often designed to be stealthy and non-destructive. It can go undetected quite easily and harvest sensitive data like passwords and card numbers. Encryption. This scrambles data using an algorithm and a key so that it's unreadable to anyone without the corresponding decryption key. This applies to data both at rest, i.e. just stored data, for example on a laptop, and in transit when the data is being sent over a network, and this prevents against the security risk of interception. The data can still be intercepted, but then not understood by the person that's intercepted it. So even if a security breach lets an attacker access the raw data, encryption ensures it remains meaningless without the key. So when we go from a PC, say a standalone PC, to a whole network, we're scaling upwards. The same categories of measures are still needed, but they must be applied more systematically and centrally in a network. And that's because a network introduces many more entry points. It has multiple users, multiple devices, it has external connections that attackers can exploit. So some of the threats that are posed by networks and the internet. With a standalone PC, the attack surface, i.e. the way you can attack it and how much is exposed, is mostly just physical. Somebody needs direct physical access to the machine in order to get the data from it. But when you connect to a network, and especially the internet, you're allowing remote attack routes. Data travels across shared infrastructure, not just your own. Systems become reachable from anywhere in the world, and users interact with untrusted sources from emails, websites, and downloads. Now, malware is an umbrella term for any software designed to damage, disrupt, or gain unauthorized access to a system. A couple of examples are viruses and spyware. A virus is a program that attaches itself to legitimate files or programs and replicates when that host file is run, then spreading to other file systems, often via infected email attachments, downloads, or removable media. Viruses can corrupt or delete data, slow systems down, or provide a backdoor for further attacks. Spyware is software that installs itself covertly and monitors user activity, logging keystrokes, tracking browsing, capturing screenshots, and then sends this information to a third party without the user's knowledge. Its danger lies in the fact that it's hard to detect. It's often designed to run silently while harvesting this data. Hackers. Hackers are individuals who gain unauthorized access to a computer system, often by exploiting weak passwords, unpatched software vulnerabilities, or using social engineering. Once inside, a hacker might steal data, install further malware, alter records, or use the system as a launch point for attacks on other systems, for example as part of a botnet. Networks increase this risk because any internet-facing device is a potential entry point, and a breach of one machine can spread to others on the same network. Phishing. This type of attack uses social engineering, where the attacker sends fraudulent communications, typically by email, and they appear to come from a legitimate source, for example a bank. This can trick the recipient into revealing sensitive information such as login details, or click malicious links. It relies on deceiving the user rather than exploiting a technical flaw, which is why it's often the easiest way for an attacker to bypass strong technical security. Pharming. Pharming is malicious code that has often been installed without the user's knowledge, sometimes using a virus, and it redirects a user from a legitimate website to a fraudulent lookalike site, even when the user types in the correct URL. It's done typically by corrupting the DNS lookup process, so the domain name resolves to the attacker's IP address instead of the real one. Because the user believes they're on the genuine site, it may look exactly the same. They may then enter login credentials, payment details, and so on into that fake page, which the attacker then captures. Pharming is considered more dangerous than phishing in some ways because it doesn't rely on the user making a mistake, like clicking on a suspicious link when they shouldn't. The redirection happens automatically without them realizing. Okay, so we've seen some of the risks and threats to systems. How do we reduce the risks? Well, we've already seen firewalls, antivirus, anti-spyware, passwords authentication, having different access rights and encryption. But there's more we can do. So we can educate the users of the system, make them more aware of these risks and what to do about them. Users can check website authenticity, i.e. check that it is the real website, being careful about checking URLs and checking certificates for websites. You can put in DNS security measures to help prevent the pharming, and you need to be doing regular software updates and patching. So which threat is countermeasured by which approach? Viruses and malware, we can use antivirus software, regular updates, and being careful about what you download and where you download from. Spyware can be dealt with anti-spyware software, also help with firewalls that block data going out by checking what's going out and looking for anything suspicious that's being sent out. To prevent against hacking, you can use strong passwords, authentication levels, firewalls again help, encrypting your data and patching the system with fixes for vulnerabilities. For phishing, you need to do user education, check the sender who sent emails carefully, check on the links that you might be asked to go to. You can also use spam filters to prevent some of the emails from getting through to users in the first place. And then farming, you can use DNS security measures. You need to be checking website certificates carefully. Keeping software patched helps again. Okay, so in summary, some of the key terms we've looked at is security, privacy, and integrity. Some of the measures we've looked at were having user accounts and passwords, using biometrics, firewalls, antivirus and anti-spyware software, using encryption, and remember the importance of how we scale up from a standalone PC to networks, and how we need to make sure that our security measures keep up with the demands of a network. The threats, looked at various threats and viruses, all kinds of malware, hackers, phishing, farming, and countermeasures we can use for these threats include firewall, encryption, two-factor authentication, and so on. For human problems, we've got user education and checking the URLs and certificates more carefully. So we can match countermeasures to the threats and try to make sure that our system is kept secure, our user data is kept private, and none of the data has been lost, corrupted, damaged. Okay, so that's 6.1 data security, and next time we'll move on to 6.2.